This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Redesigning Your Business with Valerie Mayen. So quick note that this will be recorded for later use. Everybody will get a link via email that signed up for this workshop. And if you are a season pass holder, you'll get a link to all of the different workshops and talks. But yeah, so Valerie is the founder and lead designer of Yellow Cake Shop, and I'll let her go ahead and take it away.
Thanks so much. Hey guys, so I'm excited to be here. I'm really glad to be teaching, leading, whatever you want to call it, this workshop. And it's really important to me for several reasons. One, I think that personally as a creative in my own experience, well, I paid a crap ton of dollars for art school, but I didn't really learn much about the business side of running a creative business in art school. So I definitely felt a little shortchanged, and my goal is to hopefully either inspire or give you some information that maybe you either knew before but didn't know enough about, or maybe you knew it's something you had to get into but weren't sure how, or maybe you just didn't know it at all because you are new at your business, or you've been doing it a certain way for a long time and it's worked for you, but maybe it's time to level up. So yeah, that's why we're here. So before we start, I want to make sure that you guys are not offended by anything that I say, because sometimes when I'm talking about business, I get really passionate and I use, I don't know, I don't drop too many F-bombs, but I'll say like shit and hell, and sometimes I will say fuck. Yeah. So hopefully that's okay. And if that offends you, I'm sorry. Now you can maybe bleep it out or something. But I think that's also kind of comes with the territory. Being a business owner is hard. It's not easy, and it is a full-time 24/7 kind of gig. And I do think that all of those memes floating around that say something like love your job and never work a day in your life are such bullshit. But if you love what you do, it can definitely be fulfilling and rewarding. So that for sure is truth. All right, so there are 5 key things we're going to talk about today, but I do want to leave some room for Q&As if there is a need for that later. And certainly if you have a question, if you're kind of trickling in, feel free to raise your hand or send a quick chat to Josie, and she can interrupt whatever I'm talking about and we can answer those questions, because I want to make sure that as we're discussing all these really important key facts in business, that if you have a question about something, that you don't forget it, or that whatever you have a question about, it's answered before we continue. That way you can fully grasp everything. Again, this is nothing that's like earth-shattering or groundbreaking, but they are basic business fundamentals for creative businesses that I think a lot of times entrepreneurs don't think about, or they kind of get confused by all of the information that's out there. Like there's so much information, it's ridiculous. It's kind of like trying to figure out the best weight loss plan or the best doctor to look for, or all the crazy info that's out now about corona. Like, end of story, wear a mask, right? But yeah, I think with business, like the end goal is to make a profit, right? If you're not making a profit, then is your business really worth your time? Is it really worth the headache and the stress? Is it really worth you being away from your family? Is it worth the money that you're investing in it? It's often been said that if your business isn't making money, then it's just a glorified hobby. And I do think in the beginning, when you're building your business, that might not be the case. But if you've been at the same grind for 7, 8, 10 years and you're still not seeing a profit, then it definitely might be time to reconsider your trajectory or your technique. So the 5 things we'll be talking about: 1, target audience. Okay, how do we find our target audience? How do we target our messages to that target audience? And how do we keep our business on brand, right? The second thing we're going to talk about is sourcing. Sourcing is a really key element to any business, especially if you're in fashion design or any creative business where you are making a product from raw materials. Sourcing is key. I can't tell you how many times I've met designers that are still buying their textiles retail, and that is like, it blows my mind. So sourcing is our second key point. Our third key point is going to be building your team, and how can you prepare or budget for hiring. I think that hiring a team is a really scary thing to creatives, because we're all so used to working by ourselves and solo in our basement, kind of running the ship all by ourselves, everything we keep in our head, right? We don't really write anything down. And so managing a team is something that it's important because it will help you grow, and it'll help you scale, but it'll also give you peace of mind. It will give you time to actually practice real self-care. I know that's kind of a buzzword, but it's true. Like, self-care is really important. You cannot be creative if you're always burnt out and burning the candle at both ends. So yeah, learning how to prepare or plan to be able to hire your own team, and then learning how to manage a team, those are key. And once you learn those things, and once you actually do it, you're going to find that it's not nearly as scary as you thought, and it's actually really fulfilling, it's rewarding, it's exciting, and you're going to see growth that you didn't expect. The fourth thing we're going to talk about is revenue streams. So there's retail, there's wholesale, and there's e-commerce, right? You know, B2B, B2C, and online. Can you do one? Can you do two? Can you do all three? We're going to talk about whether or not, you know, what's the most viable option for you, and how can you get into each? How do you test those waters? And how can you decipher financially or fiscally what's best for you? And then the last thing we're going to talk about is when to say no to opportunities, and when to how to close a firm yes. You know, I think a lot of times as business owners, we're used to doing things kind of by the seat of our pants, and a lot of verbal contracts are made, and it's hard for us to say no. But we need to learn how to prioritize our time, and also say yes to the projects that we know will further our brand and our business and are the best use of our time, and say no to the ones that are probably not worth our time, even if it's hard to walk away. And then also how to really firm up that yes, like getting a contract in writing, getting all your ducks in a row, making sure that everything is spelled out so that you're protected. Oh, sorry. Also, my kid is here. So she's 4, and she wanted me to show you this lovely set of rhinestones she's creating. That's really cool, Luna. Thank you, baby. Anyway, okay, so the first key point in this series or session, whatever you want to call it, is our target audience. So I know that it's very easy for us as creatives to want to do all the things all the time for everyone. And while we are able, doesn't mean we should. So, you know, I'm a fashion designer, right? And I make clothing for women. But I also like making kids clothing. Does that mean that I should make kids clothing? Does it mean that I can sell kids clothing? Not necessarily. Yes, a lot of my clients do have kids, but are they really in the market to buy high-end handmade clothing for their kids? Maybe not. And you know, just because you can doesn't mean you should. So you know, if you know, sell beanies, right, for people that like to ski, but then you also want to start selling tea towels, like the business doesn't correlate, right? And then you're also diversifying your product too far within your scope or within your skill set, that it just might be too difficult to maintain long term. It's kind of like what's that? Cheesecake Factory. You know how they have like a menu that's like a book, right? Like there's so many things in that menu. I think the only reason Cheesecake Factory can sustain that kind of crazy menu with all those options, like they have like Asian inspired stuff, they have Tex-Mex, they have Italian, like it's all over the place, right? I think they can do that because it's a chain, like it's a huge chain. But as a small business, like you can be the master of one thing, or you can be the master of nothing. You know, like I know that's, what is it, like the what's that phrase or that adage, like master of none or jack of all trades, master, I don't know. Do you know, Josie, what I'm talking about? Anyway, there's some adage, I don't know what it is. It's like eluding me for some reason. But basically,
Yeah.
you know,
It's jack of all trades, master of none. You had it.
yeah, jack of all trades, master of none. It's like there was a book I read by Manolo Blahnik, and that's kind of what helped me when I started my career in fashion. Manolo Blahnik, before he was a shoe designer, a famous shoe designer, he was in costume and theater design, and he loved stage wear, he loved props, he loved doing everything, right? And his mentor said, Manolo, you need to find one thing that you love and one thing that you're good at and stick to it, because you can't do everything. And she was right. And so he had his sketchbook full of shoes that he loved to draw, but he never made them. And he just figured, well, I love shoes, so let me try shoes. And lo and behold, the freaking king of shoes, right? So, you know, when you're looking at what you do, and if you're doing something that's specific and that's tailor-made for a specific audience, there's no way that you can cater to everyone. So why not focus on the people that you can serve well and serve them to the best of your ability? And then when you know who your target audience is, you know how to specifically craft your message, you know how to specifically craft your content, you know what products to make and design and develop, you know what price point you need to meet, what threshold you have. It just makes running your business a lot easier. Like if you can see the target, you can hit the target a lot easier and a lot more accurately. So, you know, there's no way that, like, my audience is not a 24 and under Instagram influencer. That's not my audience. Those girls want Fashion Nova, they want H&M, they want like Lulu, like whatever. They want something cheap and fast, and that's not who we are. Like our products start at like $134 and up, but they're really well made and they're built to last. And now that slow fashion is becoming a little bit more, people are becoming more aware of it. Every now and again, we'll capture some of those younger girls, but they're not our target market. So I'm not trying to design products for those girls, nor am I targeting even my verbiage whenever we speak on social media. I'm not like, yeah, all the vibes, like LOL, like catch those feels, y'all. Like I don't talk like a college girl in my messaging. Like we target our marketing to professional women who are in the age range of 34 to 55. And that's kind of what we do, and it works for us. If we stray too far outside those lines, then we lose some of that audience. And our target audience are the ones that are the regulars, they're the ones that are loyal, they're the ones that we sometimes also call them the Marcies, right? We have this one client, Marcy, who is the best. Like she's also what we call a dink, right? Dual income, no kids, okay? Her and her husband, they both have really good jobs. They don't have any kids. They live in a big city. They take lavish vacations. They appreciate finer things. And when she comes to us for her clothing or for custom goods, she's so appreciative. She's so understanding of our processes, and she puts down a lot of money. So we're always looking for clients like Marcy, who have the income to support our brand and our price point, and they have the appreciation of slow fashion and the process, and they appreciate it. So when you're considering your target market and your audience, what I would recommend is to look at your historicals, look at your data, look at, you know, you can even survey your clients who are currently your regulars, or even just your whole client base. If you have an email list, send out a survey that asks, you know, you can ask personal questions or you can ask blanket statements. You can ask where they're from, if they're married or single or widowed or divorced. You can ask what their income bracket is. You can ask what their occupation is. You can ask if they live in a rural area or an urban area. And then you can kind of get to know them. Ask where else they shop. Ask why they shop with you. Ask how they came across your brand. Ask whatever you want to get as much, thank you, Luna, to get as much intel as you can. And then once you have that intel, you can kind of start making basically like a profile, right, for your client. So my client, I know she's in the age of 34 to 55, sometimes 60. She typically has like 1.5 to 2.5 kids. The 0.5 is like usually they're pregnant or they've just had a baby. They love wine. They love book club. They love expensive gyms like Orange Theory or Pilates. They usually make anywhere from 70 to 120K a year. A lot of our clients are CEOs. They either own their own company, or they are higher up in the executive level of their fields. And our clients are also really into social justice, right? They're philanthropists or they're on a board of some nonprofit. And they're full-time moms and they're full-time working women. So that's our client profile, right? And knowing all those facts, then we know how to tailor our content. You know, maybe if we put up a post of one of our garments, we'll do a post that also includes the best happy hours in Cleveland with a photo of one of our models or clients wearing one of our garments, right? Or we'll do a post on the best places to get your garments dry cleaned, or the best hotels to stay at with the most amenities around the country, because they might travel a lot, right? So you want to, once you get that information on your client, then you know what their hobbies are, what their interests are, where they shop, and you know how to tailor your content. Because if they're going to come to you for information, not just about your product, they might see you as an authority on other areas of their life that relate to your product. So once you know your target audience, then you can serve them better. And it's a very wide known fact in business that it costs less money to retain your current client base than it does to bring in new clients. Like client acquisition is a lot more expensive than client retention. And if you can do a great job of retaining your current clients and serving them well, then you're going to see your growth increase. Because if your clients love you and they keep buying from you, then they'll tell their friends, and then those friends will love you and they'll keep buying from you and they'll tell their friends. So rather than trying to think of new, crazy, innovative, whatever ways to bring in new people, stick to really serving the clients you have now and serve them as best as you can. Give them the best customer service, because that's where most small businesses can beat other big businesses. Are there any questions so far? Hi, Heather, welcome. All right, so we're going to move on now to sourcing. And then Heather, if you want to let Josie know what your business is, we can also tailor some specific things to you too, if you're curious. So sourcing is super important. Whether you are a fashion designer, whether you are in print media, whether you are an illustrator or a sculptor or a jewelry maker, sourcing is key. And the best advice I can give you is to not just scour the internet, but also ask other brands. A lot of times in most creative industries, small businesses can be really tight-lipped about their sources because they don't want you to deplete their own sources, right? Or they probably found like a gem of a, land fill of really awesome products that are super, super cheap that no one else knows about, and they don't want to share it because they don't want someone else to source what they have that's super unique. But every now and again, if you reach out to brands that you really admire that are similar or in the same industry as you, and you're curious about their processes or about where they source, just reach out to them and say, hey, I'm a new business, or I do this thing in this part of town. Like if you're in different cities, usually some brands will be like, we'll share sources with you. If you're in the same city, it might be a little harder. But reach out to those brands first and see where they're sourcing their supplies, because sometimes the best suppliers are not online. A lot in the textile industry, or in my industry in fashion design, a lot of fabric suppliers don't even have a website. They have a phone number and a fax machine, and like you'll be lucky to get a hold of them, And a lot of them still go through reps, like old school. They go through fabric reps, and you have to go through the rep first, and the rep gets you swatches, and it's a whole thing. But if you spend time doing the heavy lifting and the legwork in the beginning, then you can build up a directory of really great sources and build up some good relationships and have some really great places on your back end that will really help your bottom line in the long run. The other thing I'd recommend is don't buy the first supply or set of supplies, or don't buy from the first vendor you find. You also want to make sure that what you're buying is going to be able to sustain your price structure. So if you're doing wholesale, you want to make sure you take that into account, because say, like for us, we usually spend anywhere from $2 to $6 a yard for our knits or for our canvas, for our trench coats and our best-selling cardigans. If we spend any more than that, we're getting into an area that's going to make it too tight for our margins, right? We don't wholesale anymore, but we used to, and we have luckily that wholesale markup built into our pricing. But I've known designers that are buying like jersey, which is super thin and not nearly as good quality. They're buying it for like $9 or $12 a yard. And if you need 4 yards to make a dress, right? That's like $44 to $46 to make a dress. That's just for your raw goods. That's not including your labor. Like that means you're basically gonna have to charge like, I don't know, close to $200 for like a simple dress, which some people might pay, but you're not making yourself competitive enough, and then you're kind of undercutting yourself because you didn't source properly. Sorry, there's a lot of loud motorcycles right here. So I'd recommend going to other brands that are similar to yours and just asking them outright. If they sell a really cool product, or they sell something that you'd like to make, or if they use certain supplies or tools that you're not sure about, just ask them like, hey, do you happen to know about any suppliers that can provide X, Y, or Z for me? Or do you have a contact that you'd be willing to share? And just try to go about it as professionally, as politely as you can, because not everyone's going to respond, or some people might be a little snarky to you, and you never know till you try. The second thing I'd recommend is just making sure you shop around. Do a lot of research, dig and dig and dig. Make sure you use the keyword wholesale in there, obviously. You either put wholesale or buy in bulk. Try not to buy your supplies off Amazon or Etsy. They're always going to be crazy high or take forever to get here, or maybe not even get to you at all. Etsy, there's a lot of people selling supplies on Etsy, and I don't fault them for that. Like that's a great resource for people to make good money. And I would say if you're trying to get really unique specialty supplies, then maybe go through Etsy if you have to. I used to myself way back in the day when we used to make jewelry, but it's just not the best source. A lot of things on Etsy, there are also small businesses like us and they also need to make a profit, and they're running smaller operations, so they're going to be higher priced. If you need smaller quantities, then sure, go through Etsy. But if you can afford to spend a little bit more, then I would spend a little bit more in terms of volume, then I would say go through other sources if you can. Also, don't be afraid of companies that seem a little bit more professional, a little bit more like put together. Like when I first started my business, I thought that like all the big fabric companies would never let me buy from them because I was too small. But you never know till you try. Some companies don't have minimums, some do. I think especially now in Corona times, anyone is willing to sell to anybody. So you kind of have the upper hand, because whereas companies might have had minimums before, might have had certain regulations or restrictions, they probably don't have that anymore. They're probably just willing to make a sale to anybody that's willing to pay. So don't be afraid of companies that might seem too professional for your level of business, because you never know where what their capacity is. Also, don't be afraid to bargain. We've got a couple suppliers that we work with in Pittsburgh and in New York, and almost every time they send me a price sheet, I say, okay, well, if I get 100 yards, can I get a price break? Or if I buy the whole lot, can I get it half off? And I usually try to lowball, because that's just the Latin American in me, right? But I usually lowball, that way I know that they're going to try to come up a little bit. So if the price is $5 a yard for like this like end of the bolt remnant from like 1985, and I'm like, hey Julie, can I get this for $250? I know she's going to come at me and say, no, but I can do $350. And that's really what I knew she was going to say. And then I end up getting a good deal, and she sells what she needs to sell. So don't be afraid to try to bargain, because you're a small business too, and it never hurts to undercut. And I know that that's kind of a no-no with artists. Like everyone's like, pay full price, and I totally agree with that. But people do it to us all the time. So I don't think it's wrong of us to try to get the best price we possibly can, because believe you me, like retailers and suppliers, they have their own markups too, and they have room in their price point sometimes to bring that down if they have to. That's kind of how pricing works. Any questions so far on sourcing? All right, so next we're going to talk about hiring and building your team. So building a team can be scary, because if it's always been you doing your own thing for the longest time, it's really difficult to concede power of a task, or to kind of give people control of something that you've always controlled, right? Like it's really difficult to have someone do something that you've always done and trust that they can do it to the level and the quality that you do it. Like that's really difficult. But I promise you, once you learn how to delegate and let go of some of those fears of control and relinquish some of that to your team, it's going to free up a lot of time for you to do what you do best. It's going to also give your team a lot more empowerment, and it's going to make them feel like they're really contributing to the team in a way that's purposeful. And then your company is going to grow. When I first started my business, I was only able to make like I think 8 coats a week. And once I hit that cap, I was like, well, shit, like I'm never going to make any more money than I can with 8 coats a week, because I cannot sew fast enough. Like there's just no way. So when I hired my friend to help me, we were able to make 16 coats a week. And then I was like, oh my gosh, like I can make double the money. I'm just paying him what he's asking, and then I get some money off of that, because I built a profit into my my markup. And yeah, it worked. So as long as you account for your labor and your cost of goods, you can pay people. I would say a great way to make sure that you can pay people is to work backwards from your historicals. So if you've been in business for at least a year and you're thinking of paying people this year or hiring a team, then look at what you made last year. What was your gross revenue and what was your profit, right? And what were your other expenses? And I would look at your expenses and make sure that, maybe you're not overspending too much in one area. Like, I remember one year I finally looked at my expenses, and I saw that we were spending like $6,000 on meals and entertainment, right? And that was usually just like food for the interns or food for events that we had. And I'm thinking to myself, well, holy cow, like, why are we spending $6,000 on meals and entertainment? Like, there's just no way we should, like, we weren't a big company. We had like a little storefront. There's no way we should have spent, like, we were just eating out Olive Garden and getting drinks way too much. So you want to make sure you look at your expenses and look and see that you're spending a healthy amount of money, not too much, not too little for those categories. Oh, 1 second. Luna, I need you to go play, okay? Here, I'll give you 1 gummy. You want a gummy? Okay, you're welcome. All right, sorry, my 4-year-old is here. I have bribes at the ready. So Look at your expenses, make sure that you're not underspending or overspending. There is such a thing as underspending. If you're not spending enough in marketing, that could be a reason why maybe your company isn't getting enough exposure. If you're skimping on paying for the premium service of MailChimp, that could be why you're not able to send out a certain number of email campaigns. So make sure that you're spending the right amount for the scale of growth that you want. The other thing is you want to make sure that, if like you hear about all these times these companies that are making $1 billion or these companies that are grossing $1 million, that's all good and well. But if they're spending $1,001,001, then they're not making a profit. So you want to look at your gross revenue and then your profit or your operating income. And if your operating income is if you're in the black, then great. If you're in the red, then we need to readjust and make you a plan or a budget on how you can be in the black. If you're in the red in your first 2 years, that's okay. But after about 3 years, you may want to, recalibrate and recalculate and figure out why you can't seem to get out of the red. I know that a lot of businesses, like I think Peloton was in the red, like they didn't see a profit for like the first 8 years, right? And they were spending crazy amounts of money. I mean, like, I think they didn't see a profit until like the 4th quarter in their 8th year, and it was like several million, but they'd already spent like several billion. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, oh my gosh, like how can a company do that and like sleep at night? Like that makes me so nervous. But they do it, right? But for small businesses, we don't have that luxury. Like we don't have billions to spend. We don't have investors in our back pocket. So you want to make sure that after at least like 2 or 3 years, you're in the black, because that's kind of where you need to start paying yourself. So yeah, so when you're thinking about hiring a team, once you look at your budget and what you grossed and what you profited, then you can work backwards from that to decide if you have enough in your profit to be able to sustain a long-term full-time or part-time salary. Whenever I did that, I think the first 6 years of my business, I didn't pay myself a salary because I didn't know any better. I used to think like, oh, I can pay my groceries and I can pay my rent and everything else is fine, right? But then I realized that that wasn't very smart of me, and I wasn't factoring into my overall budget and my business model a way to pay anyone a salary. So once I looked at my historicals and I saw that I was grossing a certain amount of money and profiting a certain amount of money, I was able to realize that, oh, I guess I could afford to pay 2 full-time salaries and still have money left over to put back in the business, and still have money left over to pay myself a small salary, and still have money left over to even put into my savings. And so I knew I could do it because I still had some small cushions along the way, just in case, right? So if you want to pay yourself last, that's totally okay. That's what I did. I'm actually still currently the lowest paid employee on my payroll because I think that's fair. But also I have that luxury because my husband has a full-time job and my car is paid off and my studio rent is pretty cheap. So I can afford to do that. If you can't afford to make yourself the lowest paid employee, that's okay. You can pay yourself whatever you want as long as you have enough to invest back in the business and enough to pay your other employees fairly. So, once you work backwards from your budget and you can see that you can afford an employee, then just make sure that you plan a budget for the next year. And the way that I do that is I look at what my operating expense or what my operating income and what my gross revenue was for the prior year. And I think about how much I want to grow and how much I can feasibly grow based on the manpower I have, right? So in 2018, my company was just myself and my one intern that I hired for my first full-time employee. And I knew that with her as an intern working part-time, we were able to increase our business 25%. So I knew when I put her at full-time, we could maybe increase to 40% because I had just had my baby and I was not really organized. Everything was a mess, still working out of my house. So then I knew in 2019, when we got a studio, based on my end of year sales in 2018 with one employee, I knew that if I had 2 employees, I could grow by 50%. And I knew that I could pay myself. And so what I did is in 2018, I think my gross revenue was at 170 or 180,000, right? And my operating income or my profit was 34,000, right? It seems so sad to think about that. You're I made $190,000, and then you're but I only profited 35. But that's kind of how business goes. And so that also can hopefully inspire you to really look at your expenses and try to scale back. And again, that's why sourcing is important. So then in 2019, I knew that if I had 2 employees, I could grow by 30%. So I broke it down by month. And each month, I looked at each month prior. So I looked at, in January, I think we made $8,000. So I was okay, in January 2020, I want to make $12,000. In February, what's up, baby? Sorry, guys. You want to sit up here and say hi to everyone? Okay. And then I did the same thing for each month. So basically, whatever I made the month in the year before, I increased it by 30% to set myself a goal for the month in the following year. And then I made sure that all those months added up to what I wanted my goal to be for the year. And I wanted, for 2020, I wanted to make $200,000, right? And then I said that was my base goal. And then I set a mid-level goal. And I said, okay, if all goes well and we surpass our base goal, then our next goal is $220,000. And then I set a stretch goal. And my stretch goal was $240,000. And so each month, we tried to surpass each goal. And luckily, we hit and we even surpassed each goal by a couple thousand. So I knew by the end of the year, we might hit our stretch goal. We ended up doing like, I think 245,000. And I didn't expect that, but because we had all those goals, we had something to strive for. And if we were at risk of running short of that goal, we would just kick it up a notch. We'd run more email campaigns, we'd run some more sales, we'd do more events, we would figure out different methods to bring in more revenue. And that way we'd meet that goal each month. Luna, what did I say? You got some more gummies? You can have one more. Do not swallow it. Sorry, guys. Okay, so yeah, so once you set those budgets and break it down by month, they're so much easier to manage and attain. And believe it or not, this was something that I never did. I was always just like, if we make money, we make money, and let's just hope for the best. And then I was wondering why I was never really, like, we were always progressing because we were building credibility in our community and credibility online, but we weren't really strategizing. We weren't planning. And once you plan those milestones for yourself, they're much easier to hit. And then you can even break them down by week and break it down by day. You know, so I know that this year our base goal was 320,000. Our stretch goal was 330, and our super stretch goal was 350. And because we shifted quickly and we pivoted quickly during Corona, we started making masks and we sought out really big government organizations to build masks for in large volume. We're like 20,000 away from our super stretch goal of 350. And our other goal was to, I think last year our profit was like 64,000. So we grew from 35 to 64, right? Which was great because you would imagine that if we're making more money in gross revenue, we'll make more in profit. So our goal for 2020 was to be at least at 100,000 in gross profit. And right now we're at 150,000. All right. So I'm sharing this with you not to be like, look at me, I'm so rich, because I'm not, because I owe like 60 grand in student loans. But I'm saying that to show you that it is possible to grow your business incrementally with the right planning and with the right strategy and the right partners. So if you hire good people, if you pay them well, if you plan accordingly and really budget your expenses, which is really hard to do, but if you do it, you're going to see growth because it all ties together. And I think far too often as creatives, we forget about that part. We don't think it's important. We're too tied to like the purpose of our work or the beauty and aesthetic of our work. And if we want to be fed by the work we do, then we have to do better. We have to be smarter about how we spend our money, where we spend our money, who we hire, and what we pay ourselves. And we should pay ourselves. So now I pay myself, which is great, and you should too if you're at that point yet. But yeah, so create a budget, break it up by months, set goals based on how much you think you can grow percentage-wise and how much you think you can grow based on the team you have, and then break it down by the week. And hopefully you'll see some improvement in how you structure and plan your month. What my team and I used to even do is we would make a whole calendar for the year at the end of the year. And we would look at the events or the products or the launches or the photo shoots we were going to do. And we would try to plan each month based on what our goal was, what we could do to bring in different revenue streams. So like before Corona, we used to do a lot of retail events, direct to consumer shows, like, shows like One of a Kind in Chicago or the American Craft Council, like higher end craft shows or trade shows. And we knew based on certain shows we'd done before several times, like we knew we could make 5,000 to 6,000 at that show, 10,000 to 16,000 at that show, 12,000 at that show. So we would make estimates, right? And so if we knew what months we had which shows, then we knew what we could guesstimate we would bring in that month. And then if we were short, say like in February, right? We knew we had this show in Baltimore, and that show usually yielded us about $7,000 to $9,000. And then we knew that we had like a self-care Saturday event here at our studio, and that usually brought us in like $3,000 to $4,000. And then we knew that we had a couple sewing lessons for some private clients. We had a couple custom orders that were going to be due that month. So we could guesstimate how much money we were bringing in. And then if we were coming up short, we would think, okay, well, what can we do to make up that deficit? Do we need to run some extra email campaigns? Do we need to reach out to some other custom clients? Do we need to send out some more requests for more applications for other events we haven't done before? And that'll all, vary by business. So however you find or seek out business, you want to make sure that you have enough for each month to be able to support the goal that you want to reach. All right, so next, let's see how we're doing on time. Still have like an hour, right, Josie? Or half hour? Okay, cool. Any questions on hiring and bringing on a team? Okay. Oh, also an org chart. Oh, yeah.
I do have a question.
Sure.
I've been looking into like the transition between profit sharing and like salary. How
Okay.
did you? So it sounds like you you decided to hire on somebody's salary before, like you didn't. I don't know if you're starting at like with team members that all kind of start with you to begin with. Do you have any recommendations on like how to pay everybody when you don't necessarily have enough money to pay everybody
Sure.
salary?
Right. Yeah. I mean, so there's a couple things you could do as far as like profit sharing or equity. That's something I've always wanted to get into, but I don't really know enough about that to speak on it confidently. I probably would tell you the wrong thing or make something up and it'd be totally off base. But I will say when I first started, I was giving people the option to work hourly, to work part-time or to work full-time. And I knew that if I could afford a full-time salary, then I would just hire one full-time person so that that person and I could do a really good job together instead of trying to like hire all my friends and have them working little part-time gigs here and there. Because yeah, that's the hard part too, is that it's very easy to want to hire everybody in your community because you just want to give jobs, right? And you want to work with your friends. But what I first started doing is, really making sure that I'm classifying them as W-2 or 1099. And that's also really important. One time I had an intern that I hired her, but she was working hourly, and I thought that it was okay to have her classified as a 1099 employee, but it was not. And I didn't know this, but if you misclassify someone working for you, if for some reason things end poorly with them and they are smart enough to go to the IRS, they could claim a suit against you as a misclassified employee, and then you could pay thousands in back taxes. And the IRS will almost always side with in favor of the employee because they want more money. So you want to be careful about that. Usually anyone that's 1099 is going to be somebody that doesn't have set hours or a set schedule. If they work from home, if they are doing contract-based work, then they could be 1099. So all of my sewers are 1099 because they work from home and they work based on work orders or projects. And they all have their own businesses, so they send me an invoice for the work they do for me, and that's how we run that operation. But our W-2 employees are people like Gabrielle, who's our newest employee that we're hiring back after Corona. She's going to be doing customer service, fulfillment, shipping orders, and answering emails. And she'll be doing some of that from home, but she will still have set hours, and we are basically setting her task and schedule for her. You want to go home? Not yet, baby, okay? In a little bit. And so I would say, if you're wanting to pay everybody but you can't, try to start, what I recommend is look for the highest level need that you have. Obviously, you can't hire everyone at once to run your team. I hired one person at first, and I hired her very part-time. And then once I was able to afford it, I was able to bring her on full-time. And then once I was able to afford it, I hired another person. So I didn't hire everyone right away. And what I hired for was the need I needed most. So at first, I was going to say, oh, I need someone to do social media, but I really didn't. What I needed was somebody to vet customer emails and fill orders, because that takes up a lot of time, and it's not something that I can have a virtual assistant do remotely. There's also another thing is virtual assistants. That was something that I was really hesitant about at first, and I didn't know much about the virtual assistant world. But now that I do, it's like I can't sing their praises enough. Like, virtual assistants are the best. And if you just need somebody to help you with research and running social media or doing anything that can be done remotely that doesn't require a ton of skill, it's just data or research or what have you, virtual assistants are great for that. But I would recommend finding a service that doesn't require a fee up front, because those are a little sketchy. But also, when they require a flat fee for the month up front, you don't know what the virtual assistant is getting paid. Typically, VAs are in third world countries or developing countries, which I'm not against completely, because if you're working with a company where you're paired with a VA or you choose your VA yourself, then you and your VA can decide on their rate together. So we actually found a VA through this company called onlinejobs.ph, and it's all virtual assistants that are based in the Philippines. And I really wanted to make sure that I hired a female, because in the Philippines, a lot of women are left to care for the children, and they are not sought after for jobs. They're not given priority over men. And so I wanted to make sure that we hired a woman. And we looked at like a ton of resumes. I mean, there's so many candidates. And the cool thing is that you can look at their IQ score, you can see their English competency. They're even rated on like how good they are at Excel or Word or social media or writing in English. And then you can interview them via Skype. And I narrowed mine down to like 5. And then I narrowed that down to 3. And I gave those 3 test projects. And then out of those 3, I hired 1. I wanted to hire 5 because they were all great. I hired 1. Her name is Alyssa. She's been with us since December, and she is freaking awesome. Like, Americans should be scared because she is so smart. She is a powerhouse. When I give her a task, she asks like the best questions. She's very detail oriented. And when we're sleeping, she's working. And it's great because we do everything through Asana, and she's been running our social media. Sometimes she puts phrases that don't make sense, but we usually can like, you know, edit those captions for her and stuff. And her English is great. And we just gave her a raise actually. She set her rate. You know, we asked her what salary she wanted. She told us, and we were like, sure. And what's great too is that in developing countries, they have a different cost of living. So it's a little bit more affordable than if you were paying somebody here in America. And then that will allow you the growth you need to be able to pay someone in America, pay someone who lives near you, pay one of your friends a really good salary. So we're able to support a woman in another country who, you know, in the Philippines, it's like typical commute to your job is 2 hours. And she has a kid at home, so she can't go to a full-time job. So now she's able to work from home. She's able to take care of her kids. She can pay her bills. And it's kind of cool because like we're able to help another woman in another country, but also provide jobs here in our home base. So if you're looking to hire someone but you can't quite afford a part-time or a full-time salary right now, I would look into a virtual assistant first. And then if that's something that interests you, then have them help you build your business so that you can have the income to then support a part-time salary or even just an hourly salary or hourly pay, and then work your way from there. What I do sometimes too is if I'm hiring someone and I can't give them the best pay that I would like to, I let them know like, here's my plan. At your start date, I'm going to give you X amount of dollars. But by this date, I want to give you a raise, and then by this year and time, I want to have you at X amount of dollars. So as long as you have that in their offer letter, then they know what they can grow to, and then they know what their expectations are. Okay, we can go home in a little bit, okay? You want another gummy? You can have one more. That's it. You're eating all mommy's gummies. All right, next is our decision to revenue streams, right? Retail, wholesale, and e-commerce. You know, most businesses probably would seek retail and e-commerce because they're probably the simplest to approach. Wholesale is a whole other animal. It's a beast all its own. I would say retail and e-commerce are also the easiest to manage because they have the, you know, anyone can set up an Etsy account, anyone can start a website on Wix, right? But if you're going to get into wholesale, you want to make sure that you have the proper margins or the proper price structure set up. And that was something that I didn't know until much later in my design journey. When I was first selling our clothing that we made, I was pricing my garments and my products based on what I thought the Cleveland clients could sustain and could, you know, could support. And that was kind of naive of me and not very smart because there is a big world out there, right? And, you know, anyone and everyone can have a piece of it if you market properly, if you are consistent and persistent. And whenever I would start doing shows and events in Chicago and DC and San Francisco, people kept telling me, oh my gosh, your prices are so low. And I was like, did I say 100? I meant 200. You know, like, so basically I was undercutting myself because I was catering to a Cleveland client only. And Cleveland is such a small part of the country. And Cleveland isn't the only place, only city, or only area of the country that likes our products. So once I realized that I can cater my price point to what we need to make, then I started getting smarter about doing that. So you want to make sure that that's the first thing you think about when you're considering retail or e-commerce. Don't price your products just based on your region or your locale. You can if you want to, but you may be undercutting yourself. Obviously, if you live in a metropolitan area that's really expensive, like if you're in Colorado or in Utah or in New York, then yeah, you'll have to price according to your costs and expenses and the clientele and what they can manage. But if you're online and you're also retail in brick and mortar or direct to consumer in your area, consider what the average would be. You know, that's what we try to do now. We try to kind of go in between the two because we have that markup built into our price structure now. You know, for example, our Luxe jumper, right? It was one of our best-selling jumpsuits. It cost us about $36 to produce it with materials and labor. And we were selling that jumpsuit for $214 because we knew it was special. We knew it would sell well. And we wanted to have that markup built in case there came a time where we need to discount it, or we had to make sure we had enough room in there to be able to sell wholesale without cutting into our margins too much. So we could wholesale that piece for $84 to $90, and then our wholesale vendors could retail that piece for $180 to $200. So we had our price at $214. That way, if someone that's selling our product at their store and someone goes in there and they see and they go to our website and they see it for $214, they'll buy it from the vendor because it's lower price with the vendor. We never wanted to compete with our vendor by selling it too low. We wanted to always make sure our price point was the highest price point. That way our retailers and vendors could sell lower, and then we wouldn't compete with them. And then also it just gives us a little more wiggle room in case other products have a lower margin or they're underperforming. So now what we're doing is we're kind of coming in between what our wholesale price could and should be and what our retail price used to be, because what we're doing personally is we're cutting out wholesale. We tried wholesale ourselves for about 2 years, and we were successful somewhat, but we just found that with the pandemic, not a lot of stores survived, and the ones that did may not be in the market for higher end workwear or clothing that's geared towards a traditional work setting. So we're also shifting our product offering a little bit, and we're also shifting our price to be more pandemic friendly. And by cutting out wholesale, we're able to do that. So that was the decision we made after we tried it for 2 years. Maybe once the pandemic is behind us and once the economy has revived, maybe we'll try wholesale again and we'll slowly increase our prices if we need to. But we found that offering discounts on our inventory that we had overstock of, because we had all this inventory built up and nowhere to sell it, was better to sell at a discount than let it sit on a shelf and collect dust. Plus, we were making enough income from mask making and custom orders that we felt that it was the fair thing to do to provide that savings to our client who'd always been so loyal to us. Oh, thank you. Does anybody want some chewed up gum? So you know, wholesale is not for everyone. If you have a smaller product, paper goods, home goods, you know, stationery, jewelry even, those do really well in wholesale. And if you have smaller items that are lower cost to produce, but you can produce them in high volume, anything that you can produce and mark up 10 times, that's a great product for wholesale. I've noticed in my experience with wholesale, any trade shows we've done, there are a lot of vendors that have gift shops, and anything that's giftable is going to be a great product for wholesale. So now when you're dealing with wholesale vendors, they're very different from consumers. Consumers care more about the story. They care more about you as a person. They care more about the brand and your ethos. They care more about the quality and who made it and why. And retail store owners just care about how much money they can make. They sometimes care about the story if it's special or how it looks on their shelf, but they really care about how much money they can make, what is it going to cost them, and can they move it. And that's a little hard sometimes to detach yourself and switch gears. But if you have the skin for it and you can do it, then I say go for it. Because even though you might be taking a hit in your margins by selling at a wholesale price instead of selling at your retail price, you might be increasing your exposure and your revenue by selling more volume. You know, so where I can sell to X amount of direct, single consumers a week, you might be able to sell bulk orders to 5 to 10 different suppliers a month, and then that's more people in other parts of the country and other stores that are having exposure to your product that might not see you otherwise. So if you're considering wholesale, I would just make sure that you can have the right profit margin for that. Typically in fashion, the formula is cost of goods plus labor times 2.3 times 2, right? So if my cost of goods and my labor is $30 total, multiply that by 2.33, and that's what, like 60 point something or 70. I'm just going to guesstimate. Let's say it's 70, and then that times 2 is 140. And then sometimes I add like 10 or 15% as a buffer for if I decide to have like a sales rep or someone that I need to pay to be with me at a trade show to give them a cut of commission. So you want to build in that just to be safe. If you don't want to do it at first because you don't want to scare people away with your prices and you just want to get the sale and get your foot in the door, that's okay. But you want to make sure that you start to incrementally increase that to give yourself a little bit of a buffer so that you're not undercutting yourself. Because it's very easy as creative businesses to forget about all the small costs we have, like the packaging, the shipping, the booth fees, the time it takes you to wrap and package the goods. We often forget about even the overhead. The overhead should be considered too. We often forget about all those little things that add up. We just think like, oh great, I made 40 bucks profit off this one piece, and then you're like, wait a second, take away X, Y, and Z, and I've made like $25. You know, so so just make sure you do the math. Selling retail and e-commerce are great. If you're going to sell e-commerce, the thing that we've learned the most, especially this year, is that e-commerce is oversaturated. And if you want a piece of the pie, you have to pay to play, or you have to be consistent and persistent. My biggest thing with e-commerce, you know, for example, a couple of years ago, we were only at like $5,000 in sales, and then we grew to $12,000 in sales. And this year, the majority of our sales, I think we're at like, I don't know, 300,000 from our online sales, because we were forced to shift. We never really focused on it before. Luna, I'm talking right now, baby, not right now. We never focused on it before because we didn't have to. We were so entrenched in doing all these direct-to-consumer events, we didn't have the time. And this year we were forced to put in the time. But also, I think myself as a small business, I was concerned about being obnoxious to our clients. I didn't want to send out too many emails. I didn't want to put up too many posts. I was just afraid that people were going to get tired and sick of us, right? And I thought that they were going to get annoyed and we were going to be overbearing. But what I realized was that, you know, we are all inundated with visuals and with email and with messages all the time from everyone around us, right? I get an email almost every other hour from Target, right? Do I unsubscribe? No, because I love Target and I shop there a lot, right? Do I delete all other emails? Yes, because I don't always need 30% off patio furniture, right? But every now and again, I'll see something and I'll be like, hey, I was looking for this, you know, super high-end water pitcher. Oh my gosh, it's half off. I'm gonna buy that, you know? So that's why I'm still subscribed to emails, because every now and again I want to. Okay, here, you wanna play with these stickers? You can play with these stickers. So when I started getting over my fear of being obnoxious and annoying to our audience, and we started posting a lot more, I saw a huge increase. I mean, and we have a decent following, you know, I just wasn't using it, I wasn't speaking to them as often as they would have liked to hear from me. And what I was doing too is I was too focused on like the aesthetic and the message, and I was constantly thinking of like, what do I want to say today, and trying to craft these like beautiful long prose, you know, posts. And those are all good and well, and those are there's definitely a place for those. But sometimes people just want to see an image and they want to know where they can buy it and they want to know if it's on sale, you know. Sometimes they just want to see a video of you making something. Sometimes they just want to see what it looks like on you. Sometimes they just want to see, you know, see a quick snapshot of your family, or, you know, what have you. But I make sure that anytime I'm posting anything on my feed, whether it's of my kid or of my dog or of me, that somehow my product is tied in. Not always, like obviously, like, you know, during the Black Lives Matter movement, like I'm not posting anything on my product, you know, and even when I'm posting anti-racist tools or info, I'm not promoting my product. There's a time and place for everything. But yeah, I will say that if you're not consistent or persistent, people are going to forget about you. Like sometimes I would send out an email on like a Monday, and then, you know, for a sale, and I would wonder like, why is nobody buying? You know, like I only got like 2 orders, and I sent out the email, and my husband was like, well, do you send out any more? And I was like, well, no, I just sent out the one. And it's kind of like, you know, you're whispering to your friend, but you're not speaking to the audience. You know what I mean? So now we start sending out 3 emails in 1 week, or sometimes 5 emails in 1 week if we're running a sale, and we get multiple orders, because we're reminding people, hey, remember, there's a sale. Hey, did you forget about this? There's a sale. Hey, guess what? There's still a sale. You know, it's like when you get your mail and it piles up and you forget to read all your bills, they'll send you another bill and it'll be pink. They'll send you another bill and it'll be green, and then they'll send it to collections, right? It's kind of the same thing. Like, you got to keep reminding your audience of what you're doing and where you're doing it and how they can find you, because we can't expect our audience to remember just us, because there's millions of other brands also buying for their attention. So the more consistent and persistent you are, the more return you're going to see. And you also want to make it easier for people to say yes. You know, make sure that your website has all the information they need to be able to say yes. You know, if they have to email you to ask a question, they might just end up leaving your website and not wanting to buy. If they have to search to try to find the right size or the size chart, they're probably not going to buy. If there aren't reviews on that product that give them more confidence that this is a good product to buy and that it fits well, or that it looks great, or that it's super cute and they must have it, they're probably not going to buy. So you want to make sure you make it easy for them to say yes. Even in your stories, don't assume that your client knows what size it is, what colors it comes in, how much it costs, or where the website is. Link that bitch, put the colors, put all the sizes, like whatever information you can put in that story or that feed, put it in there, because you know, I don't like to use this phrase that your clients are dumber than you think, but your clients are not as smart or not as knowledgeable on your product as you are, because they're not the business owner. So you want to make sure that you provide that product information all the time, because you also might have new followers. You might have people that are new to your brand. All right, any questions about retail, wholesale, and e-commerce? So I know we didn't get to cover all of it. There's so much I wanted to cover on that, but we have like, what, 30 minutes left?
Yeah, like 35.
Okay, so the last one is when to say no, and how to say yes, and how to make sure that that yes is firm and solid. And what that means is basically, I think a lot of times as artists, it's easy for us to not draw up proper contracts. It's easy for us to just say like, sure, yeah, I'll do that job or I'll do that project. And then if you don't have anything in writing, if you don't have a contract in place, then it's basically opening you up to a bevy of problems. You could agree to do something, and if you don't have a written contract, if you don't have a schedule, if you don't have a set list of expectations, then you run the risk of the client expecting more from you than you can actually deliver. You run the risk of the client not paying you what they promised. You run the risk of the client getting upset because you delivered a product that they weren't expecting. So you want to make sure that when you're doing any project or anything for a new client, or selling any kind of product, that you have either policies in place written somewhere on your website, or that you have a contract that has all the details listed and everything in place to protect you. I even have on some of my custom contracts a kill fee. And what a kill fee is if a client decides that they don't want to finish the project, or that they found someone else to make their wedding dress, or that they just don't want to buy the dress anymore, then whatever they've paid up to that point is not refundable. Or if they haven't paid everything that they need to for the work done, then 40% of their deposit or their fee is owed. Because you have to ensure that you're paid for your time, because it's not uncommon for some people to be like, okay, here's a marker. We're gonna go home very soon. You can go play on that paper over there. Saying no is a very difficult concept for artists. I fall in that same boat. I even had a friend who wants me to work with them on a project, and when I did the math, it didn't quite make sense, but like I really want to work on this project with her because I love the idea and it looks like fun, but it doesn't make fiscal sense. You know, if you have the luxury to take the financial risk, then do it. You know, if you think that investing in this project and losing a little bit of money is going to mean in the long term that it is giving you more credibility, more exposure, more experience, then go for it. If you can justify the investment in the project for other reasons than just financial, then do it. But if you do the math, or if time-wise it's going to mean that you have to take away time from other projects that are higher paying or that are with longer standing clients, then you really need to think long and hard. And it's okay to say no, or it's okay to say maybe later, because sometimes when you say no to something, that means that you're having to say no to other things possibly at a later date. Like, I can't tell you how many times I said yes to wedding dresses just because, you know, we were in a slow season. Like, I don't hate wedding dresses, but they're not my favorite. You know, you have to be a really special kind of person to be able to do wedding dresses full time. And, you know, usually if I would take something on and it was a slow season, I wouldn't always regret it, but then like some opportunity would come along that was really cool and unique, and I'd just be like, I'm so slammed with all these effing wedding dresses, you know? And so when you say yes to projects that maybe aren't in line with your brand ethos or with your brand strong suit, or even with your own skill set, I get it that we all need to put food on the table and we all need revenue and income. You know, before you say yes or before you say no, make sure that it makes financial sense, or make sure that it makes sense in another way. You know, I've definitely done my share of projects where I wasn't getting paid a lot of money, but I knew that it meant lending more credibility to my portfolio or to my resume, or it meant that I was helping with a community project that I knew would benefit our mission as a company. You know, think of the other ways that you could be getting a return that aren't just financial. And if you have the time and the capacity to do that, then go for it. But with your projects that you say yes on, make sure you have a contract. I cannot stress it enough. I cannot tell you how many times I've been dicked over in the past, in the early stages of my career, for people that, you know, just assume because I'm an artist, I don't know shit about business, and they can just change the rules, or they can, you know, decide not to pay, or they can, you know, change their mind. And that part is really unfortunate. So you want to make sure that you have everything in writing, that you're clear about expectations, that you're clear about a timeline, and then that you're clear about your deliverables. So for the money they're spending, what are they getting? Because sometimes people might assume that they're getting X, Y, and Z, and you're only delivering A, B, and C. We always have clients that assume the fabric is included in the cost of our services, but it's not. Like, fabric is a separate expense. The quote we give them is usually just for labor, and then if they want to buy their own materials, great. If they want us to buy it, sure. If they want us to source it for them, that's going to cost them extra. So that's always how you want to make sure that you're crafting your contracts, is making sure that everything in there, the line items that you think are best, are protected. And you can even research other brands and other companies within your industry to see what contracts they use, if they're willing to share with you. That's another great thing to ask other brands that are like yours, like, hey, do you use contracts for custom work, or what invoices do you give to your clients? What terms do you provide? Even with wholesale, wholesale, you can kind of set your own terms. Some people do net 30, some do net 60. We do 50% upfront, 50% when we ship, So you can set your own terms. No one can tell you how to take your money. That's up to you. The other thing I would recommend is making sure that you give yourself enough time to deliver the things that you say you're going to deliver. And if you find yourself at the point where you're not able to deliver what you said you're going to deliver, then communicate that with your client, communicate that with your audience. Most people are very flexible when they know the timeline of things. And if you keep them in the dark, they're going to get pissed, and rightly so. But if you give them a heads up and keep them informed along the way, then they can build trust and confidence in you. There's one thing I was going to mention, and I totally forgot what it was. We were talking about contracts and terms, and I don't remember. Sorry, guys. It's like totally eluding me right now, but I'm sure I'll think of it like right after we hang up. But anyway, yeah, there's no shame in getting paid. It's just sometimes it's scary to ask for money, and it's scary to ask what you really want because you're afraid of people saying no or getting sticker shock. But you'll be surprised at the people that are willing to pay what you're really worth. And once you start getting paid what you're worth, and you'll be like, oh my gosh, like what, this whole time, and it's really rewarding and fulfilling to get paid the money that you deserve for the work that you're doing, because it's unique. And if no one else can do it like you, then you should be getting paid what you're asking. What are you on time? Okay. Do we have any questions or anything you guys wanted to go over that maybe we kind of went over really quickly? I know I talk fast. There's a lot to cover. So. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
So in your contracts and stuff, and you say like you kind of detail out what the expectations are, what the timeline is, things like that. Maybe could you just give like a quick example what some of those expectations would be? I know you kind of mentioned it, but
yeah, and that reminded me of what I was going to say. Typically, when I give a quote to a custom client, I try to give good, better, best, right? So I don't want to lose a client because they can't pay what I'm asking, but I also, don't want to undercut myself. So what I do is I give a good, better, best quote. So there's the classic package, right? And that's, I don't know, I'm just throwing out numbers. Like if someone's getting a wedding dress, I'll say, okay, the classic package is $1,200. That will get you one fitting, that'll get you one sketch, that'll get you 1 hour of revisions, and that's it. Like once you've approved those revisions and you've gotten that one sketch, that's all you get. That's $1,200, right? Because that means less work I have to do, and then it keeps me to a tighter schedule, and then they can stay in their budget. Now, if they want the essentials package, that's going to be $2,400, right? That's going to get them 2 sketches, that will get them 2 fittings, that will get them 2 rounds of revisions, and then that's it. Nothing more, nothing less. And then if they want the gold package, that's like, I don't know, $5,000. They can fly me to New York and I'll go with them on a trip to buy the fabric, and they get 3 fittings, they get 5 sketches, they get, Chantilly lace from Chicago, I don't know. And it's like the gold package, right? And they get all the bells and whistles, and that's $5,000. And that's usually the one, I mean, every now and again, I'll have a client choose the gold package, but that's usually the one that I price very high because I don't want to do it. But if they pick it, then that means I'll be getting paid well and it's worth it. So typically, whenever I'm listing expectations or deliverables, like I recently had a client that I was working on a special product for, and it was a child's product, and I knew it was gonna be very complex. And so I made sure in the contract that I stated, okay, we expect this much money up front. We can provide this many meetings only half an hour each, because sometimes, you know, clients are going to want to email you, they're going to want to call you, they're going to want to set meetings for like hours on end. So I make sure that they know my boundaries, basically. Like, I can give you 2 meetings at half hour only. I can give you 2 phone meetings at 15 minutes only. And then whenever we deliver all of the patterns and the final samples, then that's when you pay the final payment. If you want any adjustments to those samples, it'll be a la carte. So I just make sure I try to detail any scenario that could possibly come up as much as I can. You know, you can't predict everything, but I try to put language in there that can protect me to as much as I possibly can protect myself. So that's why I also have, sometimes I'll detail certain things. Like I'll say, okay, you know, the range of cost is going to be this, $3,000 to $5,000. It's $3,000 if we use X, Y, and Z. And then if you want the 4th and 5th fitting, it'll be X amount to total 5,000. If you don't have the 4th and 5th fitting, then it'll be 3,000. So that way they know, you know, they can get X amount of fittings. And if they want to have a 4th fitting or a 5th fitting, then it's going to cost extra. Like I had a client once, she had an amazing dress. We made this really cool black wedding dress for her, but it had like a cape and it had this giant pussy bow and it had like, I mean, it was a lot, and it was chiffon, and then it had like this bodysuit, and we made the skirt part of the dress, and she wanted all pleats, right? And we did all pleats, and she approved all the pleats. And then she saw it on her and she was like, I don't like the pleats. And so I was like, okay, well, we can redo it, but it's going to mean a 4th and 5th fitting. And she was like, well, how much extra is that going to cost? And I was like, well, good thing we have it in the contract. And so I looked in the contract, I said, it'll cost you X amount extra. And she had to make that decision. And luckily she was willing to pay for it, and I changed it, and it was perfect. And she loved it, and she ended up on the knot, and it was awesome. So you just want to make sure that you can detail the expectations as much as you're able to. What's your business? Or what creative business are you in?
So I'm a freelance designer.
Okay, graphic design or illustration or both?
I do, so a little bit of both. I'm into the hand lettering type
cool.
deal. I'm kind of looking to go onto e-commerce and branch out a little bit. But right now I'm just doing it with clients. I'm very new to it. And so therefore creating contracts with them and trying to figure out, you know, what's the X number and things like that. So
yeah, I would make sure, you know, if because some people might change their mind on what they want to put if they're getting like a custom sign for somebody, or they might change their mind of what they thought it was going to look like. So I would make sure that, you know, you have them sign and approve the font that they wanted or the phrase that they wanted, because we even have that happen with us with clients that we do what's called pre-orders. So if there's an item we have in stock that a client really likes, but we don't have it in their size or the color they want, we'll make it to order for them. And I can't tell you how many times our older clientele forgets what color and size they ordered when they ordered it. So usually we have these pre-order sheets, and it has their name, their address, all their info. It has the style they ordered, the size they ordered, the color they ordered. And then what we do is we have them sign at the bottom to verify that all that information is correct. Because a couple times we had clients in San Francisco that we were selling to, and I know this one lady named Barbara, she bought a navy tunic in a large. She got it, and she said, I didn't order navy, I ordered black. I looked at her paperwork, it said navy, but she didn't sign it. So I had no proof to say, no, you approved that. So now I have proof that, you know, if the client comes and says, well, I didn't order the large, I ordered the small. Well, the paperwork says this, and you approve that. So you just want to make sure you're protected. You know, so make sure you have like a sample of the work they're approving. If you have those samples available, make sure you have the specific spelling of the phrase they wanted, and then make sure that, you know, they know the timeline that you can deliver it in. Because sometimes people might order from you, and if they don't read the fine print, and they don't see that it's 2 to 3 weeks for a custom lettering phrase or whatever, and they're like, oh my God, I wanted it for my niece's birthday, and you didn't deliver it in time, and now I want my refund, and they get real bitchy real fast. So you want to make sure that they know that, because I've also had clients, you know, in Corona times, we are only open on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and we only allow pickups of some people that order online. They can pick up their orders only on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 12 to 6. Only 2 days that we offer that. Every now and again, we get a client that comes on a Monday, and they haven't gotten a confirmation yet, and they're just like, and they're like, I'm here to pick up my order. And I'm like, sorry, I'm home with my kid. This is my day that I'm not at the studio. And they're like, well, I'm here, so what the heck? And they get real feisty. And I'm like, you got a confirmation email, you got an updated email, and you got special directions and times. And they're like, well, I didn't read it, and I emailed you, and you never emailed back. And it's like, you emailed me like an hour ago. It's in, you know what I mean? So like, it's in 3 places, and if they don't notice it, so you just want to make sure that it's as clear as day.
And I think I have a lot of issues with people. They like what I do, but then they try to add on to more for me to do. And I'm like, but that's
Yeah.
what we agreed upon. So
Yeah.
it's hard.
No, I get it. And I think that sometimes people, they expect like a unicorn and they want to pay half price. So
Yeah.
that's a hard part. Do you want to say hi to everybody? This is Luna. She wants to go home.
Hi, Luna.
Not done yet. She's usually not this shy. Usually she's like, hey, what's up?
She's so
Do you want to watch a movie? Okay, why don't you go sit on the couch and I'll let you watch a movie. That'll buy me 20 minutes.
cute.
Any other questions, or do you guys have any other thoughts on the last hour and a half? Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks for attending, guys. I really enjoyed this, and I'm excited to see if anyone else has any questions later, and then what I can do to help. But yeah, thanks for having me. And good luck with your lettering business, and good luck to you too, Josie. What do you do, Josie? I don't really know.
Lots of things. My primary gig is a producer for animation and like just
Cool.
managing creative projects, but I also animate and make my own art stuff. But
Yeah, cool. Did you go to school for animation?
yeah, at CCAD
Where'd you go?
in Columbus. Columbus College of Art and Design.
Oh, no way. I almost went to CCAD. I transferred to CIA from UArts in Philly, but I was like really torn because CCAD has an awesome like campus and program. Yeah.
Yeah, especially for fashion.
Yeah, I kind of wish I had done it because CIA didn't have fashion. I studied illustration and graphic design, so that's what my first degree is in. And then I took like a class on how to make a skirt, and then I dropped out because I had no more money. So I was like, screw this. Bought a bunch of books and I learned what I could, and I just faked it literally till I kind of made it.
Yeah, and you absolutely made it.
Yeah, kind of. I think so. I think we're on the way. I think if they can hire more people and I don't have to work as much, then I think I almost made it. But my big goal is if my husband can quit his job and then I can just work, because I love working. Like, I love it. And then he could be a house husband. I don't care.
Heck yeah.
He's better at it. He like started a whole garden in the backyard. We like grow our own cucumbers and tomatoes now. I mean, he does it. I don't do it. But so, yeah, I'm fine with that. He can do all the cooking. I don't care. I just need to get him to like clean better because he sucks at it. Anyway, all right, guys. Well, thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
just
Oh, go ahead.
just to reiterate, this is going to be available after the fact. Everybody will get an email with a link to the recorded session, and if you have a season pass, you can access all the different workshops and talks.
Yeah, and feel free to DM me on Instagram if you have any other questions about your business. Typically, I charge for consulting hours, but since you guys are already paying for this, and I just want to make sure you guys, it's hard to start a business, and there's really not like anyone out there that can be your mentor. But if you need assistance, just let me know. Currently, if there are any Black-owned businesses, I'm offering free mentoring to Black-owned businesses. I'm almost like right now I've got 6 that I'm working with. I can probably take on like 2 more, and then I might need to figure out a way to like get some funding or grants or something to be able to keep that going. But yeah, if you have any questions, just DM me on Instagram. It's Yellow Cake Shop or Valerie Mayen. And I'll be happy to answer your questions.
Awesome. Thank you.
You guys have a good night.
Bye.
Thank you.
See you, Josie.
Bye.